Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany, Benitez, and Jordan Franklin. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Good morning. We are so excited to be here with you guys today on the Women in Tech Trailblazers first episode. We have some amazing content for you today, and I would like to welcome our guest, Margarita Rivera. Just to share a little bit about Margarita, she is currently the Senior Director of Information Security for Lowe Corporation. Margarita has an amazing academic foundation. She has a master's degree in information systems from Harvard University. Woohoo, go Margarita. Mm-hmm. Bachelor's degree in business administration from Florida International University. And not only does she have this amazing academic background, she's able to really tie those degrees together, both the technology side as well as the financial dimensions, to come together for a great business foundation. She also has, I will tell you, I was super inspired at looking at her portfolio of certifications. She's a certified Chief Information Security Officer, certified Information Security Professional, so CISSP. The first one was C-CISO, Certified Information Security Manager, so CISM for my cyber folks, Certified in Risk and Information Systems Control, so CRISC, and Certified Information Systems Auditor, so the CISA, and then finally the Certified Information Privacy Technologist, so CIPT. That is a huge portfolio, and that is amazing. But I think one of my favorite pieces of Margarita is that she really has some strong principles in servant leadership, and I am just so excited for her to share some of that with us today. On the personal side, she loves outdoors. She loves hiking and kayaking, exploring new culinary and cultural experiences. Yay, sign me up if there's food and cultural experiences for sure. And then immersing herself in a captivating book. So Margarita, that is a little bit, we did a little bit of an intro on you. Is there anything you'd want to call out beyond that before we get started in our discussion today?
Wow. I mean, it was quite a mouthful, Tiffany. It's very humbling to kind of hear it all sitting on the other side. Very grateful and very gracious for all the things that I've been able to be completely candid with you. And you'll see the recurring theme, whether it's on a podcast or writing and whatnot, that beyond the things that I've been able to accomplish, professionally and academically, really my heart is all about people. And it's about helping people, developing people, and leading people. So I think you can have all the wonderful, degrees in the world, and you can go to the best of Ivy League schools. But if you don't take care of your people and look out for your people, then you're kind of lost, to be completely candid. And I think that a lot of what I've been able to achieve has really been because of that. So it's wonderful to hear. I was like, wow, I've done a lot in such a short amount of time. Well, I say short amount of time, it's been 20 plus years, but nonetheless, my true passion, my true heart is really around people, and it's around developing folks. So I want to make sure that that's called out, because you see a lot of certs and you see degrees, and it could be a lot. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the people that you're leading and impacting.
Yeah. The people do the work, right? So you got to make sure that they're good and happy and taken care of. Well, today our purpose of the podcast is going to be around authentic and purpose-filled women. I think we're on that path already. And today's session, we're going to be talking about how to lead as women with purpose at the table. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, how you lead with purpose, I think you kind of started in on that. Just wanted to kind of set the tone. So.
Absolutely. So, I mean, being a woman in a very male-driven industry has been very interesting. I remember, being the only woman amongst a sea of men going to different conferences and different meetings and whatnot. So I think that leading with authenticity is incredibly important. And it's also incredibly intentional in terms of really truly being able to show the value that you bring to the table. I think that many times, women try to kind of approach, conversations and meetings and discussions, and not in an authentic way, because they're trying to emulate the male counterparts that are around them. And that doesn't really distinguish you. It doesn't really show the value that you have, because as women, we carry so much. And not to say that men do not, because our men counterparts do carry a lot. However, to truly be able to, I think, be successful and purposeful when you're at the table, you have to be authentically yourself. Because that perspective that you're going to be able to share and those thoughts that you're going to be able to share and the direction and guidance is going to come from a different place, because realistically, we're just built different. So I think that it's incredibly important. I think throughout my career, I've always really focused on kind of leading conversations and having conversations and presenting myself in all of the Margarita splendor, which could be good and could be bad, but in just being myself and embracing who I am and not trying to copy or emulate, anybody that's around me. And I know that as a woman, that can be a little difficult and can be a bit intimidating. However, I've just been able to see just so many amazing things when you really just come to the table and you're, willing to just, communicate and share and be yourself and be true to what your values are. So I think it's incredibly important for all of us.
Yeah, it brings diverse thinking to the table, right? So
yes.
If we're trying to have what I call an even table and not a tilted table, then if you're not being authentically yourself at that table, then what are you doing there? You're not using your seat to the fullest.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to talk about is that it's a journey, right? So for people on the other side of this, and maybe some younger women are earlier into their career and maybe not, right? But I think it's a journey that actually gets you there, right? So I know if I think about back in my career, earlier in my career, I didn't have the confidence or know the things that I know even about authenticity that I do now. Right. It's been a journey of like people telling us like the path we're supposed to take and the boxes we're supposed to fit in, especially as women. So I just want to know, like, so clearly, is that a true statement that it's been a journey, a personal journey of like getting to where you started, and not just from your career, but in this place of purpose and authenticity? Like, is that a true statement that it's been a journey for you to get there?
Oh, indeed. It's a journey. I think that, as you start kind of stepping out of the comfort zone and really walking in authenticity, and you start seeing kind of how things react to that, how people react to that, it's incredible. And it gives you a little bit more confidence to take that next step. So you're in this meeting, as we were talking, a couple minutes ago, you're in this meeting and you give an idea and it might be something completely different than what, the corporate structure is accustomed to, but it's embraced and it's accepted. And then that gives you the confidence to take the next step. So it's absolutely a journey. I think that as women, we start to grow and we start to understand who we are, what we carry, what our values are, what we stand for, like what are those core things that define who we are. But that's a journey in and of itself. So as you're becoming more comfortable with who you are and embracing who you are and just showing who you are in a professional or in a personal setting, you continue to gain that confidence and that security in who you are, which inevitably just helps, you continue to flourish and continue to lead in authenticity. So it's absolutely a journey. I don't think any of us arrive on day one. Yeah. I know 20 plus year ago, me was very different than, who I am today, but in a very positive way. We grow, we learn, we adapt.
Yeah, I know there was this like significant moment for me, and it was when I turned 40. I don't know what it was about 40, right? But I will tell you, post 40 has been the best years of my life. But there was this thing that kind of broke in me. And again, it was like all the things I was supposed to do, even like, society's feeding me that, our parents feed us that, we start feeding ourselves. But there was this moment where I really understood that like there is a purpose for me, right? Mm-hmm. And the purpose for each of us looks so very different. But I felt like that moment of understanding that, like, broke some things in me and broke some chains. And it was really from that moment on that I could actually do what it was that I'm supposed to do, right? It's because I finally learned that I could just silence and tune out all of what everyone else was expecting of me and all of these unrealistic, in many cases, expectations, and just operate it in what I'm good at, right? That's something else that we don't talk about, but we start trying to be good at all the things. Like, no, you're not going to be good at everything. So finding your purpose and what you're actually good in will allow you to be a successful leader. So do you want to talk a little bit about just kind of how, if there was a moment that was kind of a breaking place for you that really allowed you to excel as a woman and in your career?
Absolutely. So I think, we're at a disadvantage from the moment that we're born, to be completely candid with you. We're sold this ideology of, the white picket fence, and we're sold this ideology of how we need to behave as women. And a lot of, I think, where we are today, and I think a lot of the things that we break through are things that are ingrained in us from the time that we're born, so to speak. So I identify very clearly like with what you're saying, Tiffany, because yeah, it's definitely a journey because we're growing up and we're learning all these things and these ideologies that really don't translate to the woman that we want to be today. So for me personally, it had a lot to do with the mentors that were in my life. I understood from a very young age that that was a deal breaker for me. Like that was going to be what was going to help me, continue to grow, because folks that have walked my journey and folks that have done what I would like to do someday have a lot of experience that they can share. So I was very intentional very early on. I would say probably right after college, when I first started working in financial services, that I was going to find like, okay, who was going to be like that mentor? And it was going to be, intentional. It was going to be a male, because again, the industry was very different 20 plus years ago. And that I was going to allow this mentor, just the transparency and the visibility into who I am and that vulnerability to help me continue to grow and to be able to call out and give me the feedback that I needed. And I would say very early on in the organization that I was working for, I met this wonderful individual who was actually the data security officer. He's actually the person that inspired me to pivot, because if you check me out on LinkedIn, you will see that my undergrad is in business administration. It's not in computer science. It's not in engineering. It's none of that. That came later. But he was just so willing to just speak truth into my life and to really cast that vision. And that's where things changed, where that, nothing is impossible and really breaking with mindsets of limitation changed for me, because he was willing to see, okay, like this is an individual that is driven, that is hungry, that is going to work hard. And he decided he was going to invest in my life. So helping me to shift that mindset is what really began that transformation in that journey, and what has allowed me to be as successful as I've been thus far, although there's plenty of things I still want to accomplish. But being able to change that mindset, again, that mindset of limitation where I'm like, okay, like, so what if I'm a woman? So what if I'm Latina? So what if I'm a minority? Like, there's no difference. Like, I'm just as smart, I'm just as capable. And that really changed everything for me, because it made me see myself, like it made me see my future self, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because I became very comfortable very quickly with the mentality of, okay, I have a lot to bring. Yes, I am enough. Yes, I can change culture. Yes, I can help an organization pivot. Like, I bring a lot to the table. And that change in mindset propelled everything else.
Yeah. Well, would you say that as you evolved as a person, you evolved your mentors or your allies, right? I call them influencers because sometimes they influence me, my business, they might change my path, right? And I too started out with a male as my main influencer. And then I also have a mentor, and she's a she since retired, CIO of Department of Public Health. So, and she was a minority CIO, super inspirational. But would you find that they made room for you at the table, helped you overcome some gender biases and things like that?
Absolutely.
Tiffany and I love to say you've got to make room, right? If you get to the table, you got to make room for someone else at the table. So would you find that those are the people that helps you get to that spot as well?
Oh, indeed. And yes, there has been, many different mentors in my life. I can't say I only have one. I have many at this stage of the game. And they're mentors, they're friends, they're folks that I trust, that I could absolutely speak with. But I think that, there's a really big difference between obviously having a mentor and then having a sponsor. And I've had both in my career. The sponsors are the ones that make room at the table for you. And mentors are the ones that give you, that advice. They give you that guidance, but there isn't really much that they can do on the day-to-day. But your sponsors can. Your sponsors are the ones that say, hey, you should probably bring Margarita in, or hey, Margarita would, give tons of great contribution to this. And they make that space so that you can shine. And I think that as leaders, I do that as well with other folks that are on my team. I am very intentional about seeking that talent, seeking that potential, and then making room for it. Because that's where you really start to see where like that water tends to give life to something. And it's absolutely incredible. So I'm very fortunate that I've had really incredible people in my life, both male and female. At this stage of the game, it's a little different just because I'm not starting out. It's not the beginning of the journey. So now I would say probably like a little board of directors of sponsors and mentors that really help speak into my life when I have to make, some difficult decisions, or I need some guidance, or even when I need some support and motivation, because the reality is we all have moments where we feel like maybe we're not getting this right, or maybe we feel imposter syndrome, or we go through all kinds of things. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey. You go through just an array of different feelings, emotions, and battles. So having those folks makes all the difference, both for, just the day-to-day, but also, like you mentioned, yeah, they absolutely made seats at the table for me and gave me space in order for me to shine. They never felt like, intimidated by that, or, because I think we've all dealt with people that have a little bit of, they want to help, and then they start seeing you shine, and then they don't want you to shine. These folks have all been amazing to just give me the space to just truly be myself. And there's nothing more rewarding than that.
It's like, I wanted you to shine, but not that much, right? Yes. It's always it's such an interesting dynamic with people. But I think when we talk about a couple of things, number one, you kind of talked about really knowing what you bring to the table. Okay, that's really, really important, because ladies, gentlemen, everyone listening in, if you do not know your value and worth and what you bring, do not expect anyone else to, right? So don't be upset about the promotion. Don't be upset about the job you do. Like, if you can't sell yourself, right, and if you don't understand really who you are and what you bring, others also cannot. So I really loved that you kind of said that. And then the other thing is like, authenticity. That's something that we literally started this podcast because of, right? It's just not something that a lot of us truly operate in. And it's not from like a bad place or like someone doesn't want to be authentic, but I think until we know really who we are and how we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to do, or the journey of figuring it out with that confidence, I think you really can't operate as a truly authentic person. But what I kind of want to like segment that authenticity and talk a little bit about is that authenticity allows you to build relationships, and relationships are everything, right? Yes. So this is not just personal relationships, not just business relationships, but I mean, think about it, stakeholders, right? All of that along your personal path and your career. I just think the relationships are key to that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas and Gumption at my-gumption.com for their support. Their contributions are critical in bringing these meaningful conversations to you. Stick around for more engaging discussions right after this break.
Indeed. So yes, relationships are incredibly important. And I think, just kind of going back to what you said a few minutes ago with regards to, leading in authenticity and walking in authenticity, I think it's been a mindset shift in general for folks to really be able to really operate in that, simply because we were kind of all taught, don't be vulnerable, just don't show emotion, like don't react. That's how it was when I was, first kind of getting into cyber. It was like, you don't show emotion, and how can you be authentic if you don't show any emotion towards anything? So
don't be too aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're obviously, all perceived differently. A male could be aggressive and be perceived as a leader, and a woman is aggressive and she's in her emotions, and those type of nuances that still do exist, but that also prohibit us from being authentic because we're too afraid to show any emotion at the sound of being misinterpreted. And that also has a really big impact on relationships in general. So I think being able to have that authenticity and that vulnerability with folks helps people really truly connect with you. I don't know if you guys have ever, and I'm sure you have, had experiences where you're talking to someone that is very closed off, very reserved, very wall up, and you have no idea where things are landing. That doesn't form the type of relationships that, really give fruit to something powerful and positive. Being able to connect with folks and understand, what are their pain points? Where are they coming from? What are their perspectives? Because we all have experiences that influence how we are and who we are. So being able to kind of establish those connection points are incredibly important. And that's, whether it's personal or professional, what's going to truly, I think, lead us to great and amazing things is that ability. I think, there's such a bigger focus now on soft skills and communication and connecting with people and truly making people understand like the purpose and value of things. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, so love him, love all that he does. So read a lot of his books and watch his TED Talks. And he has one where he's talking about the power of why and the value of things and how you should lead with that. And I think in our relationships and in our conversations, we don't do such a good job at doing that. And I think that if we understand the why we're having the conversation or what the value of the conversation is, and not in a selfish, interested fashion, but being intentional. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So being intentional in our relationships, whether they're personal or professional, is incredibly important. And I think that, it just really kind of ushers in the connections that we need. Nowadays, it's a lot about that. I mean, this is the reality. Like, who do you know? Who do you network with? What's your ability to sit down, connect, talk, understand, be empathetic? All of those skills are just incredibly foundational to everything that I think we have going on in this season.
Yeah. I mean, I started my career in sales, and I think I was sitting in the most impactful time from a client was I was sitting in front of a hiring manager, and he said, she can ask me the exact same question you're asking me, but the way she asks it seems so intentional and meaningful that I'm more inclined to answer her than you. And the counterpart was a male. The counterpart that was sitting there was a male from another competing organization. And I think that is the moment that it clicked, that like being authentic and just being myself and asking it the way that may or may not be the right way, but it still gets the point across is absolutely how you win, the game of life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes you happy. It makes your core happy. It makes you happy in your day-to-day job, which I love my job. So I think that's why I think I landed here, was because I was authentic and true to myself, right? I would say, how do you feel like being authentic and, let's say, a mentor and a sponsor helps you like move some initiatives and some large projects that you've done in your past? Obviously, you've done a lot. I don't know if you even have time to sleep, but
sleeping is overrated. No, it's not. Sleeping is a necessity. I love sleep.
When we're dead, right? / take care of yourself.
I love sleep. Yes, definitely self-care is incredibly important. And I will plug that here because I think we all don't do a good enough job when it comes to that. As women, we juggle so much, and we have to understand that there is a time to hustle and there is a time to rest. And resting is just as important as the hustle, especially if you want to have longevity. So I think I needed to plug that there because I'm sure there's people listening that feel exhausted and drained. Yes, I completely get it. And I've also been there. There are seasons. Just make sure you don't stay in that season entirely too long. Right. But as far as, mentorship and authenticity and leading in projects, I think that one of the greatest projects that I've had the opportunity to do was actually just recently before I actually came to Lowe's. And that was helping the organization that I was with prepare for divestiture and split from their parent company. And it's a lot of work because I was a department of one when I first started. Obviously, we grew and I was able to, grow the team and whatnot. And that was fantastic. But as you're building a team and as you're formulating strategies, the perspective that you look at things is going to be very different when you're showing up, again, authentically. And the folks that you're going to hire are going to be of a different caliber when you're interviewing authentically. And the organizational change that you can accomplish is going to be much faster when you can do it with authenticity. That's just the reality. I think that there is such a hunger for authenticity out there nowadays, and I love that. I absolutely love and appreciate that. Because I think we've led for far too long without that. So, being able to have authentic conversations and an authentic perspective. And also, for me, everybody's like authentic version is different. But what's very core to me and what I say when I say, hey, I'm leading in authenticity is just, I'm a woman of integrity. What I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do. I'm a woman of my word. And that drives a lot within an organization because that helps build that credibility. So if I am an integral woman that, does what she says that she's going to do, then I'm going to foster more trust. And not only from the team and the people I lead, but also from, folks that are outside that are, cross collaborations with other organizations. You become that trusted partner because you're an integral person, because you do what you say you're going to do. So I think that's a huge part of it. Being in security, I think, another part that's very core to authenticity and to my authenticity is just, I'm a very selfless person in general. Like, I am not the type of person that truly cares about like titles or thrones or areas. Like, I just want to help. If I could put my spoon in and help you be more successful, let's do it. Because at the end of the day, that brings me more joy than anything else. And that in and of itself, when you're dealing with major projects, makes a huge difference in your success as well, because there isn't that struggle in that battle between, for example, in my case, security and IT, where, IT wants to do something one way, security wants to do something another way, but I'm so stubborn and stuck in it because I'm only looking at this perspective. No, I'm open to hearing the challenges and the pain points and figuring out a creative way so that we can meet in the middle. So I think that there's, core parts of our authenticity that will translate like undoubtedly into everything that we do. And in an organization, you want to work with people that are going to be true to their word. You're going to want to work with people that are not selfish, that are not arrogant, that are easy to work with. I mean, if I'm working with someone that's easy to work with, I will go to the ends of the earth for them because they are amazing, authentic, and that they're pure of heart in the way they're approaching things. So I think that that directly relates to anything. And everything that I was able to do, at that organization was a result of that. Like when I left to come to Lowe, it was very hard because I had a great team. It was wonderful to leave behind. I left behind my successor who then, was promoted into my role because I recommended, like, you need to give her this chance. I'd been grooming, helping, pouring out into this woman for 8 years. To see her stand in her own light, amazing. To see the rest of the team, growing and flourishing and doing what they need to do, and to leave that, done and completed is a result of that. So I think that, we all search for authenticity, and even in our leadership as well. I know that's important to me and the leadership that's above me, because that inspires me to keep going.
Yeah, I think there's some key things that really stood out to me about what you said. And number one, if you do not know Margarita, if this is your first time ever hearing her, this is not what she's saying for a show. This is authentically who she is and how she operates as a leader. But as a woman and as a leader in general, what you allow to happen by operating in authenticity and in a place of trust is that you set an example. So more than just making additional seats and more than just operating in that authenticity, you set an example for other women, right? I think we don't have enough leaders that are standing up to talk about the things that need to be talked about. It's one of the main goals of this podcast is that we talk about all the things that maybe lots of people for a long time have shoved under the rug. And so bringing things to light, there's some power in bringing things to light, talking about it, discussing it. Everyone has a different way they navigate through that. They have a different way that they work through things. But I think hearing the perspective of multiple people and multiple women leaders and how they do that provides a freedom and some hope for other people to be able to say, for other women to be able to say, wow, I can do that too. Like, I don't have to be this like bitter, competitive woman, right? And I'm sorry if that's real. Like, we talk about all these disparate numbers of women in different spaces and how low they are. But ladies, gentlemen, yes, we need our allies to come along and that will help. But ladies, we will take each other out before a man ever will. So let's like stop competing. I saw this meme that I shared and I love it. I'm never going to stop sharing it. The people at the top are collaborating. If you're competing, you're not at the top anyways, right? Because that's not what people at the top do, right? There is enough room for everyone. There is enough room for everyone to shine. And if you're focused on helping others shine, you will shine naturally. So you don't have to fight so hard. I think we just fight and strive a lot. And I think watching you do that, even from afar, even from like not getting to sit right beside you and do that sad face, watching you do that has really just created some inspiration. It has created hope. I mean, not even just in myself, but in people that work with you every single day. And I think a lot of that stems from, we talked about in your bio in the beginning when I kind of talked about some of who you are, but servant leadership is who you are. And someone's leadership style is key, right? In how they operate and how they move. And can you just talk a little bit about how that servant leadership looks for you and how it's really changed and impact things for not just you, but your teams?
Incredible. Honestly, it's a question that kind of gets me a little teary-eyed, to be completely honest, Tiffany. So came out to this organization 6 months ago, and a lot more people here than in the organization that I was leading before. And servant leadership has always been a part of, how I operate. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I would not be willing to do. And I'm not so far above anything that I would not get caught up in the details. So that's how I've always been. It's how I've always led. Coming here to this organization has been incredible. I can't even begin to explain how much it has filled my cup. And I don't even think my team really understands how much they mean to me and how much I value them. But for me, just, coming here, it was never like, okay, I have this all figured out. Here I am. I have the plan. This is what we're doing. Don't care about what anybody thinks or what you've been through. And there's leaders that exist like that. Oh, well, I'm here and I know everything. And obviously they hired me because I'm fabulous. So here's my plan and this is what you're doing. And you're not even talking to your people. So from day one, it was never about, hey, here's Margarita's plan. No, it was understanding their story and their journey and connecting with them and just finding the pieces that I could connect to make their worlds a little easier. And that's really been my focus for the last few months and taking the time to just walk around and say hello to everybody from, your individual contributors all the way up to leadership, because I think a lot of times people focus so much on leadership and they don't remember their people that also need time and attention and also need to know, hey, you're doing a great job and need to hear from you. So for me, the servant leadership part is, to me, it's so innately, it's just so normal. It's so natural because I'm a people person. So everything that I ask for, I'm going to absolutely do. Also understanding and sitting and talking to my folks and getting their perspective and ensuring that I'm being very inclusive of my folks and just leading by example is really what it just comes down to. And my folks see that. My folks see that day in and day out. Like, I'm not above anything. I'm not, trying to accomplish anything that would not be in everyone's best interest. And apart from being servant leader, I'm also mama bear and, very protective of my team, of what I can do to help them grow, to help them develop, because I've been where they were and I've been there. And I think a lot of times we forget what our journey was even like and what it was like to start off and how much it meant to us to see our leader do something that we were doing or be a part of something. It makes such a difference in how people respond to you. And I think that collaboratively we can achieve so much more. So I just can't figure out a way that would be even better than that. Like, I always think like, I'm doing this. Is there something I need to do better? How can I change this? How can I make this, much more impactful? But really at the end of the day, it all starts with that. It's just that I don't have a higher perspective of myself. I know I'm a human just like everybody else. There's no difference. Sure, I may have, obviously a couple years on many of them, but that's okay. Just gives me a little bit extra experience, but that doesn't mean that they can't teach me or pour out into me or affect, my thought process. Absolutely they can. So giving folks that space and letting them feel seen and heard also makes a difference.
So we're coming close to time, so we kind of need to start wrapping it up. But what would your final thoughts be for our viewers and kind of leave them with, an authentic feeling? Since that's our, word of the day, I would say warm fuzzies. That's just me. But what would be something you'd want everyone to know, about Margarita, or what do you want to say?
Okay. Well, we're not going to make it about me. We're going to make it about everybody. So
okay.
My advice, I think, would be, or my final thoughts, I have this thing that I do with my kids. I do it with my husband as well. And I use it even for things that are work related. It's called my white sheet of paper. And that white sheet of paper is blank. There's nothing on it. So if you had to decide what your authentic life would be like, what does that entail? What's core to you? I think that, as women and men as well, we need to take the time, carve out an hour and just say, you know what, this is going to be my time to think. This is going to be my time to process and evaluate where I am today. And what does that look like? Like, if there's a true desire to walk and lead in authenticity, then what does that look like for you? Because again, that's going to look a little different for each and every one of us. Our authentic self is very personal. So I would say if this is something that is resonating in your heart, take the time to define what that looks like. Because that starting there really helps you determine the steps that you need to take to align to that authenticity. And I have 3 girls, ages 15, 12, and 11, and I spend quite a bit of time pouring out into my children because I want to raise strong, independent, powerful, authentic women. And these are things that I even do with them from the early stages. Because imagine where we would be today had we learned very early on that we need to be our authentic self, because the message that we were taught was we need to get along with everybody, we need to play nice with everybody, we're all in our feelings, and feelings are great, feelings are important. I'm a feelings person as well. But if what I am feeling doesn't align to my authenticity, then there's a disconnect. So defining what that looks like, I think, is incredibly important. And I think it would be the main takeaway that I say for anybody listening to the podcast. Like, take the time to define what your authentic self looks like. And if what you're living in your reality doesn't align to that today, then define what those steps are to get you there. Because I guarantee you it's a force multiplier.
I love that so very much. I could literally stay here and talk to you all day, Margarita, but I want to just say
Likewise.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for coming, being on our episode. You're our first episode. We are so excited just that you were able to take the time out of your day and to come talk to us and to the community. We want to say thank you to our viewers. Thank you so much for spending time out of your day to listen to what we think is really important coming forward through this Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Again, you're never going to stop hearing about authenticity. We're going to talk about different fun topics. We're going to really talk about the things that people are not talking about. We want to talk about the real deal and dirty, and really kind of just, again, not from a place of like bitterness, right? But from bringing light to these topics and really understanding and getting different perspectives from across the industry on how to navigate. So thank you so much for your time. You'll see at the end of this episode our socials so you can follow us. You will also see Margarita's social information so you can stay connected with her. So we thank you guys very much. Have an amazing day.
Well, that's a wrap. Another episode of Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for tuning in and sharing this time with us. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode with your friends in tech. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us keep bringing in inspiring guests and uncovering topics that matter to you. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and making your mark in the tech world. Goodbye for now.